Hi everyone. I wanted to talk with you about something today called showing versus telling, which is super important. Something that I struggled with when I first started writing. I had difficulty understanding the difference between showing versus telling. And my first books that I wrote, well, they were kind of terrible because I did a lot of telling instead of showing. And so this is really crucial to get your story to really pop off the page. And so when you tell something, you tend to summarize for the reader what's happening in your story. And you're listing facts and you're giving them information rather than letting them experience what your character is experiencing in your story. And so here's a little definition. Let me put this on the screen right there. Boop, there we go. So telling is when you inform the reader about what's happening in your story. Telling is when you summarize some of the actions that have taken place rather than letting the reader experience the action. So this is a common problem with young writers, that they tell more than they show because telling is easy and showing is hard. Here's an example you see at the bottom. He's tall with blonde hair and bright blue eyes. So you gave the reader some information, and that's a tell. And so that sentence fundamentally is not interesting because it's just information. It's just an info dump. And we don't want to use info dumps. So here is an example of a show. And so, wait, let me put the definition up there. Okay, that one's out of the way. Okay, boop, there we go. So showing is when you put the reader into the action and you let them experience what's happening. Showing paints a picture in the mind of the reader. Showing lets the reader feel and see and smell and taste the environment of the story as if they're actually there. And that's really important. Sensory input is really important when you show. So let me show you the example here. The boy stared down into the dark pool. A pair of blue eyes, bright like the sky overhead, stared back at him, his blonde hair falling across his shoulders like the finest strands of gold. Other kids moved next to him and stared into the water, curious as to what he saw. They were all dwarfed by his towering height, none taller than his shoulder. So there I did the same thing as what came before. Let's see, in the tell, I said, he's tall with blonde hair and bright blue eyes. And here what I did was, instead of describing him, I let the character look in a pool of water and see his reflection and let the reader experience that. So that's a big difference. And if you also notice, he's tall with blonde hair and bright blue eyes is a very short sentence, and what I have here to describe him is a paragraph. And so that gives more meat to your story. It's not always important to add more content to your story. Sometimes more content is bad. But it's important to let your reader experience what you're doing. And so that's super, super important. So here's another couple of examples here. Let me go, whoop, there. A tell. It was cold. Okay, that was information. A show. The frigid wind hit the end of his nose, numbing it instantly. So you got to experience something with that, and that's a much better description of the environment by telling how it affects the character. Here's another example. Let me stick it over, well, it's probably going to go, let's put it at the top. Boop, there we go. A tell. He felt tired. Okay, there you go. A show. He slumped down into the overstuffed chair, exhausted, his arms and legs too tired to move anymore. So I made the he felt tired as a sensory thing about how his arms and legs felt, and I used a verb, slumped, meaning he kind of just collapsed into the overstuffed chair. I use all of these things to try to portray more information, more feeling, and more sensory input to the reader. Okay, now go away. There you go. Now, a funny thing, when I write my stories, I usually will outline the story, and then I'll outline the chapters so I know what I'm trying to write. Not always, but usually. And when I outline, I tend to outline it as a tell. I don't know why, but that's what I do. And so I want to show you an example of the outline that I would write as a tell, and then what the chapter would look like as a show. Okay, so here, there. Here's the outline. Here's the tell. They woke up at dawn and ate. Watcher's back was sore from the evening rest. Stretching didn't help. Planter was already awake. She commented on how she was a morning person and had no trouble getting up. Cutter eyed the zombie as he put on his armor. He had to check the ropes on Erlon, making sure he couldn't escape. They all gathered their gear and prepared to leave. So you see how, when this part was written, they woke up at dawn and ate. Well, we didn't really say anything. What did it look like when they woke up? What did they eat? What did they do? Watcher's back was sore from the evening rest. Stretching didn't help. That's kind of like I'm just relaying information to the reader. Here's the big one. Planter was already awake. She commented on how she was a morning person. So I summarized what she said. I shouldn't summarize what she said. I should have shown what she said and shown how other people reacted to it. So this is a tell. Now, here's what the chapter came out like when I rewrote it and I wrote it down and put all the description and information and everything I wanted there. Okay. Oh wait, so this will probably cover the whole screen. Watcher slowly opened his eyes. His mind was foggy, still lost in the pleasant dream involving his sister and his pet pig Chops. A warm red glow shone down upon him through the leafy roof of the forest, the rising sun bathing the landscape in deep reds and soft oranges. Sitting up, he glanced at the eastern horizon. It was painted with every shade imaginable. The square face of the sun was just peeking out above the horizon, driving the starry sky overhead away for another day. He stood and stretched, then smiled as a gentle breeze caressed the tree leaves overhead, causing them to rustle, making a sound like distant applause. It was a peaceful, calming sound. An ache let itself be known in his back. Sometime overnight he must have rolled onto the corner of a stone block. Bending his back, he tried to stretch the knot from the muscles, but it seemed to only make it hurt worse. "Come on, everyone, let's get moving," Planter said. She was a morning person and had no trouble waking up or being ready to greet the day. Well, that sentence was probably a tell. That's probably bad. Anyway, "Are you always so perky in the morning?" Cutter asked with a yawn. "Of course," Planter smiled. The warrior rolled his eyes, then stood and checked their prisoner. Erlon was still tied to a tree nearby. That should be the other way around. Put there last night to keep the monsters from running away. Cutter checked the ropes to make sure they were still tight. Satisfied, he gave the zombie an angry glare, then turned back to his companions. So there's a lot more information, and there's a lot more sensory input. You feel what the people are doing. You don't just hear what they're doing. The reader is part of this, part of the awakening. I mentioned on the one sentence, she was a morning person and had no trouble waking up and being ready to greet the day. That is absolutely a tell, and I should have changed that. This chapter is from Zombies Attack, which has already been printed, and it's difficult to go back and make changes. I would love to go back and change that sentence because now it really bugs me. But so that was a tell in the middle of all that show. Sometimes telling is important. Sometimes you may want to summarize what happened because you didn't want to spend a chapter showing it because it isn't that important. And I've done that before, where I purposefully did a tell to summarize some events and give it a sentence or two, just so the reader knew what had happened the night before or something. But that what happened that night before wasn't important to the character arc or the characters or the story, so I didn't include it as a whole chapter. So this is something for you to think about, and showing is hard, telling is easy, and being able to spot a tell is difficult too and takes practice. And as you saw in that sentence below, I missed that sentence when I wrote this chapter, and I should have caught that as a tell, but I didn't. So this is something for you to think about. Showing will dramatically improve your writing and make readers really want to read your stuff. And so this is super important. And so you want to look at examples online. There's a ton of examples of show versus tell, and you can find those lots of places and see examples of it. The more examples you look at, the more you'll start to get the hang of it. I hope this is helpful. Bye.